It's supposed to be a mirror image.
We can start over if you want.
Can we Oh, we're live!
Nah.
Crap.
Happens all the time.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Atheist Experience. Matt Delaney joining me this week. Martin Wagner.
Howdy.
Let's go.
Okay, so